And here we are. Hi, I'm Catherine Brown Ramsperger, and you can call me Kathy. I'm an author, coach, and teacher from shoresofourSouls.com. I decided to do a few Facebook Lives to launch some books I love during COVID times while we are cocooning when bookshops and libraries were closed. And then interest did more than bud, it did more than blossom, it exploded. So now we're entering June with every Thursday booked. I want to thank every single one of you writers and readers who made this happen. It's my great pleasure to connect writers and readers, and that's why I'm here. And it's also my great pleasure to introduce our next guest. How are you today, Marilyn?
I'm doing fine, thanks, and I've been rehearsing for this. How do you all the way across America? Hope you're all okay from little old England here.
All the way across the pond.
Yeah, all the way across the pond, that's right.
So Marilyn was born in Nottingham, where Sherwood Forest is in the United Kingdom, and also it was D.H. Lawrence's birthplace. Just like D.H. Lawrence, she's an Aquarian. I see many other similarities between them as well. She's a retired school teacher who's devoted the rest of her zest, and I emphasize zest for life, to books, travel, family, and dare I say horses. She's had a lifelong desire to be a writer, and she's published 6 novels since 2001. I'm going to be talking about Look After Each Other, which is the first in her Sophia trilogy today. So Marilyn, you have anything you'd like to say before I begin to read?
Would you like me to show you the cover of my book?
We would love to see the cover of your book.
Lovely. I thought you'd never ask. Can you see? I'm a bit of an amateur at this. Is that clear?
It is very clear.
Oh,
and
good.
There's your name as well. There's your byline.
Oh yes, I like to get the name in as well, you know.
So is one of those characters Sophia?
It is. The Sophia is the one over there. That one, that lady there.
Okay.
And Scott is behind her. Derek is next to her, and the 2 children are in front. I got this inspiration to actually have a sort of family portrait on the cover. I don't know about you, but I find the inspirations for covers come from all over the place, and they seem to be right when you get them.
They do. They do. I love it. It's as though it's hanging in a hallway at your manor house.
That's it. That's
it's very British, actually. So, spoken like a true American, probably. But so, a few reader comments on your trilogy. Marilyn's trilogy delves into karma, the afterlife, and more things in heaven and earth than you've ever dreamed. Here's another. Marilyn's descriptions are so vivid, you can actually picture the scene in your mind just as though you were there. There are a couple of twists and turns that you will not see coming, and you'll definitely be surprised. And finally, this is my favorite. This is a guide for all women married to, living with, or dominated by a control freak. This is a liberation manual. So this trilogy, especially this book, after a visit to a medium, and we mean the woo-woo kind here, our heroine Sophia is coming to terms with knowing she'll die on a specific date. What does she want to do with the time she has left? And now I'm going to read you a juicy excerpt. What had she always wanted to do? How did she want to be remembered? The latter was the easier of the two. She was not Florence Nightingale and would never be remembered for her nursing skills, however dedicated she'd been. Just to have been someone who cared, loved her children, and enjoyed life. That was all she wanted. Not a bad epitaph, but for right now, She was not enjoying life, and that must change. Her thoughts were interrupted by the phone ringing. The gardener wanted to change the day and mow the lawns on Saturday when he hoped they would have dried out last night's rain. That was fine. It was sorted, although she knew it would give rise to a further Derekism, and that's her husband, yes?
It is.
Anyway, they would be out tomorrow, and so they would not have to listen to the harrowing noise of a lawnmower. Now back to more important matters. What had she always wanted to do? Firstly, be a graduate. She had achieved that in 1988. Secondly, make a career out of nursing. Almost achieved. Well, at least she was able to nurse for 4 years after her student days. Third, her places that she had wanted to see on holidays. So Niagara Falls, the pyramids in Egypt, Paris, Rome, Venice. They had done the gondola experience, and she'd never forget it. We're all well achieved. She had wanted to see the Holy Land, but Derek had decided that it was not safe. They were not going to get blown up on a bus in Jerusalem, and this was one Derekism she could agree with. You're so funny. What did JT say? He could see the Acropolis. Athens was somewhere she had always wanted to visit, and it was where the Olympics were being held this year. She needed more She needed more fun in her life. It's my eyes, not your writing. How about joining the Mile High Club? That ought to be fun, but Derek would never do that. He was far too prim and proper. So what about adultery? That would be fun too. Fun. Grass is always greener in the next field, and sex with someone other than Derek must be more exciting. How about breaking the commandments, committing arson, walking a mile along the equator? Now that would be hot. So then she continues along this fantasy ride, including a hot air balloon ride or a parachute jump or Lady Godiva riding through Coventry. And it's things that she would never have thought of had she not been given her death date. Today, the thing was to start writing in the first black notebook and of course in black ink. She only intended writing on the right-hand side of the page. This would look neater and also meant that she could add pieces or documents on the left-hand side. The initial item was her self-affirmation, and when that had been written neatly on page 1, she turned the page and wrote neatly in the middle of the sheet. How would I like to be remembered? As someone who cared, loved her children, and enjoyed life. Satisfied with her progress, she turned to page 3, and at the top of the page wrote, "Do or die list." And I just want to ask everybody here, what would that be on your list? It amused her, so it surely would amuse others after her death. And then began the question, what do I want to do before I die? Next, in the left-hand margin, wrote date added, and on the other side of the page made a column and headed it, date achieved. Now all she needed was her list. She would give it further thought and start it next week. It was lunchtime and she wanted to start writing the first day's entry on page 4. Firstly, the date on the top right-hand side of the page, and then she left a line and started on the next one down. I am privileged to know the date of my death. It will be March 5th, and I have 245 complete days left. I am counting my blessings, and I intend to enjoy every moment. So then she makes, her first act is to make an appointment with the cosmetician, and the chapter ends with this, on this note. There was just time to make a cheese and pickle sandwich and a cool iced tea drink for her lunch before varnishing her nails, something I need to do, with that super copper bronze color to match the lipstick. When she was satisfied, she picked up her light jacket and bag, left the house and drove to the chemist and hairdresser's before collecting the children. She spent most of the change from her 50 pounds on Max Factor Black Long Lash Mascara. Oh, I love that. before making an appointment to have her hair done. There was an advertisement on a magazine jacket in the hairdressers for the article inside, 100 Things to Do Before You Die. It was just what she needed. This really was her lucky day. The appointment was set for next Friday, but she could not wait to read it until then, and anyway, that magazine might not be there. So she asked to take the article with her. The astonished hairdresser ripped the 3 pages out for her. And then Marilyn, Sophia's journey begins.
I was just thinking we'd have a problem today with hairdressers over here. I don't know about America, but ours have been closed for ages.
I have 3 people scheduled for next month. Well, 1 was scheduled for this month and 3 for next. And they all say, oh, I hope I have my COVID hair fixed. And I say, don't worry, we all have COVID hair. Even the men have COVID hair unless they shave their skulls. So I think it's all good. We're all in this together. And I might say your hair looks lovely. So
thank you. I was lucky.
Oh.
I went 2 weeks before we went into lockdown.
I know. I saw it coming. I was supposed to be in London and did not go. And I was very, very, very fortunate to have gotten my hair done maybe March 2nd. So it's only been 2 months, 3 months, goodness. Anyway, back to your books. You've published 6 novels and you've got 1 on the way. Do they deal with similar themes or are they all different?
Oh, no, they're all different. I don't believe in doing the same thing twice. I think you get some authors, particularly well-known ones, and you find you know what the ending is going to be because they've got the same theme and they write the same thing over and over again. And I think, no, I can't do that. That gets boring. So all of mine are different. The first one, Time and Tide, that's a saga and a history combined. The second one is a bit of chick lit. The third one is a sort of black comedy, and very deep and philosophical. And then I went on to the mind, body and spirit. And in fact, when I started Look After Each Other, I didn't even know if I could write 1 book on that. So the fact that I managed to write a trilogy, I find quite miraculous. And then, of course, the next one, which you do know about, Kathy, The Singing Horses, which is halfway through publication, because it's where you and I met, you know.
It is.
That, again, as you know, is very different from anything else I've done. So
it is very different. Fun. That is how I would describe your writing. You have a great wit, and it shows in every word you write. So, what prompted you to write about a woman who supposedly knows her death date?
I think it was 3 things, really. I'd been in is that 3 or 4? I never could count. I'd been in an abusive relationship.
You both.
I have a very strong relationship with my father, and I'd been to a medium. In fact, I've been to several. And the idea somehow and the afterlife all sort of combined together. And I think anyone listening to you will probably think, what on earth is this Derrickism that she's talking about? Sophia's husband is Derrick, and all he ever does is complain. He finds fault with everything. So they devised this word, Derrickism. And it's my aim to get it into the Oxford English Dictionary. A Derrickism is something.
If anyone can do it, you can, Marilyn.
If you want to complain about something, it's a Derrickism. Another Derrickism is coming along. The rain, whatever, it'll be a Derrickism. Yeah, and I like making up new words. Yes, posterity.
So I also think that it's really what everybody, they at least have toyed with the idea of knowing how they'll die and when they'll die. I know I have. It would be a blessing in a way, and it would also be horrible in another. So I think it's a great idea. So in addition to your Derekisms, I think you've held a fascination in life after death and spiritualism for some time.
Well, yes, because I think since my father passed over, I feel his presence with me a lot of the time, and I feel he's guiding me. And consequently, I've gone more and more into it. And I go to the spiritualist. I haven't been drinking wine today. I swear I have not touched a drop today. And the more you go into it and the more you learn about it, the more fascinating it gets. And you think, well, why do I bother about anything really? Because things tend to be predetermined. And you can find yourself going down avenues and fighting for something to happen. And if it's not going to, it's not going to. So I think the dates of our death are usually known. You know, my philosophy at the moment is if I'm going to get COVID-19 and die from it, then I will. And there is nothing I can do about it. As far as I'm aware, it's not in my program. I'm supposed to get through it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Because there can be changes upstairs sometimes. I've learnt that. You think something's going to happen and then they play tricks on you and it doesn't. So.
Well, and it's our free will too. We decide to go out and, I don't know, go have a lunch with someone, and that wasn't in what we were supposed to do that day.
Exactly.
Free will's involved.
To go out for lunch again, won't that be nice?
We'll have to do it.
In America.
Yeah. So I noticed that we're both fans of Dickens and Steinbeck. My favorite Dickens book is Bleak House, and my favorite Steinbeck novel is East of Eden, and that's my favorite novel of all time. I love that novel. So what other work do you like to read, and are you reading somebody right now?
The one I've just finished actually is a Dickens, a child's history of England. You know, I think a lot of people don't realise that he didn't just write novels. He wrote notes and all sorts of other things, notes from America and Italy, I believe, and short stories. And when I read this one for a child's view, I was amazed at the change in his writing and how he could adapt. You know, in many ways, Dickens wrote very philosophically. He wrote as English was there in those days, long sentences, good vocabulary, and you needed a dictionary sometimes to understand them, but it was very good. And then when I read this one, I thought he's gone back to a child's level. And to be able to do it like that, I thought was fascinating. And there was a story about him, I heard. Apparently, when Nicholas Nickleby was written, I don't know if you know this, but first of all, it was intended, or it was written in installments in a newspaper. And then it turned into a book. And apparently he was in a shop in London one day and someone rushed up to him and said, "Mr. Dickens, what is Nicholas Nickleby going to do this week?" And he said, "Madam, I don't know. I haven't written it yet." And I thought that was so good, you know. And when I'm having writer's block or something, and somebody comes to me and says, "What's going to happen next?" I say, "I have no idea. I haven't written it yet." Or the character hasn't decided yet. So when the character does, we'll all know.
Yeah.
So I also believe that characters write our books. We're just a sort of custodian almost of their ideas. Once they get going, you know, they tend to take over and do it themselves.
I totally agree with that.
The one that you've just read from, actually, where one of the characters decides to get in a car and have an accident all by himself. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Where shall I go from here? You know, so it just changes everything completely. And then you just carry on as it comes.
Yeah. I usually teach a combination of it. But if I had my way, I would just write and publish and write and publish without revising, because I think it's their story that if you do that, not my story. So I've got some comments coming in, and Shanessa says, yes, I need a pedicure. And Kathleen Rogers, who was on last week, and says, in COVID toes, to let go of all worries and grudges. So everybody keep sharing. Keep sharing your comments. And if you have questions of your own for Marilyn, let us know. This seems to be working for the first time. I feel like I'm in business, man, that this is working, that I can see 4 different screens at once. Okay, a little bit about your writing routine. Do you have one? And or do words just pour out of you if the characters take over?
Excuse me, what's a writing routine? Is there such a thing? No one told me. I'm with Somerset Maugham, who said there are only 3 rules about writing, but no one knows what they are. No, I do not have a routine. I can go for months and not write a thing, and then I can just go and write like a mad woman. Many would say I am, that's true, but still. No routine at all. Some people get up in the morning and they write from 5 till 9 or something religiously. I don't even know that between 5 and 9 exists, so yeah. And my best time is about 2 a.m, usually after plenty of wine. I'm quite good then. But no routine at all. Who wants a routine?
Well,
That's
it works
boring.
for you. It works for you. It does. So I realize it's not entirely fair to ask about your favorite character, but if you're willing, do you have one?
Well, it's usually the main character in what I'm writing at the moment. And if you've been following my posts, which I know you're going to say you are, I'm writing this thing about lockdown at the moment, and there is no character in that. So I guess we have to go back to the one before, which is the sequel to The Singing Horses. And it has to be that little foal number 7, who we both know and love.
Yeah.
He's adorable, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
And the scrapes he gets into all by himself.
So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? About the singing horses? Mm-hmm.
The Singing Horses, or lockdown, or the Singing Horses. Well, this is where Kathy and I met, folks. We both entered a competition along with many others. And I just felt that I was like a horse sitting in the paddock waiting for the race to start. And other people came along and joined in. And when the time started for them to ask us to get votes, although the votes were meaningless in the end, many people started, and they took a number of that was the store for them. And we all then used our numbers. And somehow we managed to go all the way around the world, and we got into all sorts of trouble and mischief. And little 7, well, he wasn't supposed to come at all, but he came, and he would always say, "Wait for me!" He was so adorable. He was incorrigible, and he's still incorrigible 3 years on, and he hasn't learned what it means yet.
Well, he's wonderful. So I think it's absolutely wonderful, but you're creative with just about everything you do, and it shows because of that book. And you had us all on the ride, every single one of us in that group. And what's even more amazing is that you don't consider yourself a writer. Have you sung? Are you a singer?
No. I don't know why we all sang all the way around, but we did.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
We had campfires and pizza and chips and all sorts.
We did. It was an adventure. So I know that you have traditionally published, and you self-published, and you self-published more than traditionally. And I would love your advice to someone who wants to self-publish. And are you glad you self-published?
I think self-publishing is a very good way to start, because no one is going to take you into mainstream straight away. And even those who are in mainstream at the bottom of the list can only just about survive. Most people do writing as a hobby, like I do, because there is no money in it. So people who have got this idea that, you know, you're going to be a multimillionaire tomorrow with a bestseller, forget it. Oh no, I'm sorry, you're a bestseller today if you sold 2 books. You have to be a top seller to be a multimillionaire, don't you?
You do.
So,
You do.
I've forgotten what your question
Everybody
was.
always
No,
quotes Stephen King, and Stephen King is one author out of so many. And I don't write horror yet. I might someday.
Oh, yeah. About publishing, yes. I do digress quite a lot. That's what makes me so fascinating, I think. And I think you start that way and you have to go down every avenue. But I would give anyone the best piece of advice that I was given, whatever you do, and that is to work with a professional editor. You need someone to look at your work always and to help you along the way. When I taught English when I started writing, so why do I need a professional editor, I thought. And then I realised they did so much more. So whenever anyone asks me for any advice, I always give that: work with a professional editor. Self-publishing is good. It helps you get on the way. It helps you along the road, if you like. And then you see what happens. And I always say, go down every avenue, explore every avenue. Some will be cul-de-sacs, in fact, most of them will be. But you meet people along the way, you network, and you get on with it. And at the end of the day, you get your book published. And that's more than a lot of people can do. Self-satisfaction. And it's something that you've achieved. So the publishing is essential when you've written in my book. How much further you go is up to you. Start with self-publishing, or these days you can even do it simply on Kindle. But I don't know if people realise, but if you go on Kindle, you cannot sell your books anywhere else. Whereas if you self-publish, you've got the whole market open to you. That's the big difference.
That's really good advice. And I also think it's so sad when to hide your book under a bushel is what I call it. If you've written all these manuscripts and you put them in your bottom drawer, or worse, you put them in the trash. I've known writers that did that, and nobody ever gets to read your words. So I'm with you there. So I have refreshed and I'm not seeing anything, Marilyn. I hope you'll be willing to answer any questions after we sign off on the Facebook page, just in case there are some coming in right now. But yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I can't see anyone on mine at all. I think I must have forgotten to press something somewhere, because I'm getting
That's what happens. We're learning as we go. We're flying the plane as we build it. And I finally figured out how to do it. I'm so proud of myself. So what's next for you, and what's on your do or die list? And where can we find you in your next book?
What's next for me? Whatever comes, I think, is the answer to that. COVID-19 has taken over our lives. I'm waiting to get the Singing Horses published. I think that is the main next thing for me. I have seen the cover and I have seen the first draft of the manuscript. But once we get the book, I shall be doing that. So that's my major next event. And what was the next question? I've got the memory of a goldfish, dear.
Oh, it's quite all right. So I know you're working on the novel, and what's on, well, I think you answered it. Where can we find you in your next book? I don't mean you physically.
I'm here.
You'll be in Sherwood Forest, but online, where can we find you in your book? And if you would put that under the comments, I'd appreciate that too, so people can find you.
From one of the websites, or from my blog, or Amazon, Barnes and Noble, I believe it is in America, any internet store. Sometimes more than often you have to actually order them. Obviously, if you go to the website for the publishers, they come straight through. They are in bookshops in the UK. I'm not sure if there are many in bookshops in America. So I find if I tell people usually just to put me in Google and take it from there. I came up on 3 pages in Google the last time I looked, and I love looking on there to see what I'm doing.
Isn't it
And I've got
amazing?
about 50 pictures of me on there as well, and I think, oh, that's nice.
So that's a great way. Just Google your name, Marilyn, spelled like Marilyn, as opposed to Maryland, where I live. Oh, the Brits call it Maryland. Marilyn L. Rice, R-I-C-E, and you will find her. But she'll also post where underneath this. So I always end with my tea bag wisdom. I'm so grateful for your being here with me today, Marilyn, and having so much
my
fun.
pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Here's my tea bag wisdom, and I didn't know what it was when I pulled it out for the very first time. Here it is. I was going to make it man and woman, and I will read it as well. Man and woman are as vast as he or she act. So we had a little bit of a discussion about that. Do you remember what we said? What it means?
I do, yes.
Would you, because it always means something to my guest, even if it doesn't, it always means something more to my guest than it does to me. So I'd love to hear what it means to you.
I think it means that the ocean out there is very, very big. Things are going to happen in a very big way soon. And I think not only for me personally, but I think the present situation that we're all in this COVID-19, when it is over, the world will be a better place for everyone. You know, I was out this morning with a friend and we sat at the end, each at the end of the seat in the park, you know, talking, and how things have changed. You know, people take notice more. It's time to smell the roses. It's time to relax and look at life properly, as opposed to rushing around everywhere. Or as I wrote a couple of days ago, I referred back to the old days of newspapers when people had news, and it was long before social media. And there were, in the old days, we had something called conversation. And that was before people had texts and phones, and they would just stare down and grunt, you know, because they were too busy with their phones. So conversation has died and people have started grunting. Well, now we will go back, I think, to conversations, and life will be,
There are silver linings, aren't there?
Yeah.
There's silver lining.
Absolutely.
And that's one of them, because we miss hugs. We miss the feel of looking into someone's eyes beyond a computer screen, all kinds of things. And the time will come again. Our ancestors lived through 1918, and I'm not just talking World War. I'm talking Spanish flu or the flu of 1918. And we will survive this and be better for it. I agree. So any last words? Not last words.
It's been very nice knowing you. I think I should say, read my books, folks. Enjoy life, live it to the maximum. Take each day as an adventure and excitement. Be thankful for what you have, be grateful, or in the words of Sophia Haslington, look forward with hope, but back with gratitude.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for being acquainted with you and finally seeing you face to face. And even if it is virtually, and thank you for being on with me today. I know you're going to bring lots of smiles to faces with this Facebook Live. And I totally think that if you want to understand life, death, and not everything is as serious as it needs to be. I mean, as we make it. Read Marilyn's books, because if we do what our hearts desire, we're going to be very happy with our lives. Wouldn't you say?
Definitely, yes. Life is a
Thank
bit of
you
a
again.
roller coaster, but that's the way it goes. So enjoy it when it's good.
Yeah. Thank you, Marilyn. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm Kathy Ramsperger, shoresofarsouls.com. Everyone take care and take care of each other.
Bye.
Bye.